family, what is going on? Welcome to the Alex Gem Experience. This podcast is going to be wild. It's going to be intriguing. It's going to be quite difficult to attack, to be honest with you, because it's so vast, it's so profound, and it's one of the biggest things that we need to talk about if we are to improve the quality of our lives. What am I talking about? I'm talking about fear. Yes, the very word makes us quiver and shake and tremble. But is it really necessary? So in this podcast, I'm going to initially address what fear actually is, the different types of fear, and lastly, and probably most importantly, how to lessen how much fear we experience in our lives. Because fear can be causing people all kinds of suffering, affliction, depression, leading to monotony, a laborious, boring lifestyle. It could make people get divorced. It can make people suffer from insomnia. It can make people impulsive. It can basically mess our entire lives up. And it needs to be addressed because there are all kinds of idioms and folk sayings and so on and so forth about fear. And we're going to find out the truth. We're going to drop some knowledge. So let's rock and roll. So what is fear exactly? Well, fear is obviously an impulse. It's a reaction of sorts. And there are different parts within our brain that kind of trigger fear, if you will, activate the fearful response. So there are two parts of our brain in particular that are truly responsible for our fear response. So firstly, we've got the reptilian brain. So this is the most archaic brain that we have. Okay, it's no different from a lizard's brain, literally a reptile's brain, reptilian brain, right? And its primary goals are for survival and reproduction. That's right, survival of the fittest and, have babies. And that's its primary function. So anything that jeopardizes or threatens either the ability to have babies or anything that threatens our livelihood, the reptilian brain is triggered first. And whilst there are so many different strategies that we can utilize to make sure our cortex runs the show, because that's what we want if we're going to live an incredible life, really there's not too much we can do if our reptilian brain and our limbic brain, which I'll move on to later, if they get triggered, because it always takes precedence, no matter how you think you're going to react. If something is an emergency, then the reptilian and limbic brain will react and it will take hold. Doesn't matter how well conditioned you are, if things are falling down ahead of you, if there's an earthquake or something like that. Yes, you can be more thoughtful and do the right things and gather yourself and be calm. But at the end of the day, the reptilian brain and the limbic brain will definitely switch on. and it has a stronger hold on us than other people. And we'll move on to that later on when we start to uncover how to lessen our fear. So the reptilian brain, it is truly, truly sensational what it does, because it can be totally pertinent and useful. Like fight or flight response gets triggered, reptilian brain kicks in, make sure that we react in an emergency and we get out of there or we attack if need be. So fear occurs when the reptilian brain is triggered and switched on. And the same is true for our limbic system. So what comprises our limbic system? You've got the hypothalamus, you've got the amygdala. So the hypothalamus kind of looks over the pituitary gland to ensure that we are kind of balanced, essentially. More importantly, in this instance, I'll talk about the amygdala. The amygdala is all about like arousal and kind of, as soon as it's triggered, it reacts first, and it's what happens first. So the amygdala is triggered. Say if you're in your sleep and you hear a thud, a massive noise, right? Your amygdala gets triggered first. For instance, you might jump out of bed and protect yourself or something like that. The amygdala always comes first when that happens. And there's nothing you can do about that, to be honest with you. And after that initial instant, that's when your prefrontal cortex can run the show and go, everything's all right, you're in your bedroom, everything's safe, nothing's, it's not an emergency situation like the drawer or the cabinet broke or whatever happened, yeah? But the amygdala gets triggered. And the amygdala and other areas within our brain, the hippocampus, which is really useful for our memory, for our language acquisition, for our knowledge store, our long-term memory, essentially, that is involved in the limbic system as well. So these are really powerful systems. And obviously in this podcast, we're looking at how, to steer clear of these areas, apart from the hippocampus. But really, it's an essential component of the brain, and we are very fortunate in many ways to have this, these processes, these complexities within our brains. So these two areas. So as I was saying, the reptilian brain was originated first. It's the most ancient. It's the eldest, followed by the limbic system, followed by the cortex, comprising of all different lobes, if we will. Frontal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobes. Really powerful in their own rights. But we're not going to delve too much into this. The key thing we're going to address is what fear is. So fear occurs... Now, it's kind of stepping away from what I just outlined in terms of the particulars within the brain, the actual labels and so on and so forth. And I want to talk to you about what fear is. So whenever you feel fear, fear is linked to our egos. So let me backtrack a little bit. Whenever you identify with your own mind, whenever you identify with your identity, whenever you identify with who you are, you're in a way conditioning yourself for possible pain, possible fear. Because when you consider the past, when you consider the future, you are not living in the present moment, and therefore it's much harder to govern your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors if you're living in the past, because there's nothing you can do to erase or change the past, and there's nothing you can do in the future because it's an illusion, right? It hasn't happened yet. So there's nothing you can do essentially apart from positive visualization and these sort of tricks. And utilizing NLP, and I'll move on to that later on. I'll make a little note on that. Apart from utilizing these strategies, there isn't too much else we can do. If the ego is triggered, then it can be lethal. And I'm not necessarily saying that we need to completely avoid the ego, because that's, in my opinion, that's virtually impossible in a life that's involves so many externals. It involves relationships. Involves finances, involves wealth, involves abundance, it involves, the physical world, going to meetings, keeping track of time and these sort of things. But the key thing for me is to make sure we don't stay within the ego's control, within the egoic mind. That's the key here. And, that can be changed through self-communication by taking control. And I'll talk more about that later on. But there are different types of fear. And this is usually when I start to get some objections from people, more so because when you talk about fear, and if you're saying that fear involves people's identities, people's egos, you can imagine how people can be quite stubborn and quite defensive when their beliefs, their entire beings are kind of questioned. So, some of this stuff might hit home quite hard, but I'm here to help. And I'd rather have haters rather than not help people. So let's dive in. So let's address different types of fears. I mentioned earlier past and future fears. So let's address those. What do I mean by a past fear? Well, anytime you experience certain emotions, such as regret, such as guilt, such as sadness, such as depression, you are living in the past. Because in order to feel regret, you have to associate yourself with a past event, with a memory that makes you feel regretful. Does that make sense? Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling regret. For instance, for you to feel like you missed out or missed out on a great opportunity, like a great financial opportunity, for example, for you to be regretful, you have to reminisce and think about and dwell upon a time when you had an opportunity and you did not take advantage of it. Therefore, you are living in the past. You are in there now, but your brain is elsewhere. And that's the dangers, guys. That's why we're fearful. We are associating with our egos. We're associating with our past conditioning. And if we do this too often, if we live in the past too often, we will condition ourselves to attract more of the same in different circumstances, maybe with different people, but we will continue to attract the same sort of things we've got now because we're living in the past. We've taught ourselves, we've relived experiences so often that our bodies learn to execute things better than our minds. Very much like learning to drive a car, okay? And it can be changed. And again, I will move on to these later. But anytime we experience guilt, if you knew you did something that let someone down, and you're thinking about it, and you might feel really sad, or you might start crying, and so on and so forth, even though it might evoke a kind of like humanistic, beautiful quality in the sense that being guilty is a sign that you are quite remorseful, you're quite a pleasant, a positive, a loving human being. But at the same time, guilt can't help anything. Guilt is a waste of emotion. Like, I understand if you feel guilty about something, yes, don't do that mistake again. But there's no need to dwell on it. There's no need to suffer. There's no need to put yourself through that experience because that's not going to help anything at all. You're just going to take your focus, your attention, your energy, and you're going to direct it in the wrong, harmful areas. Same thing for sadness. For you to feel sad, you have to think sad thoughts and therefore produce sad chemicals, sad emotions in your mind. And therefore change your physiology, become more closed in terms of your body language. Your voice might become more quiet. You might cross your arms, you might cross your legs, you might have your head down, you won't put your chin up, you might be looking down, your eyes might be looking down. You might feel ashamed. You might be holding your head. The traditional posture of someone who's depressed, for example. And so sadness will never help because I'll tell you what right now, guys, I'd rather you be angry than sad. Because, I'm not a fan of either. I'm never an angry person, even if someone were to do something really horrible to me. I know that even anger, some people mistake anger for strength. But any form of anger is a sign of fear. And, I condition myself to be composed. Just like a proper martial artist, they are always looking to wind up the opponent without allowing themselves to be caught up emotionally. Think of Conor McGregor, for example. So sadness, there are no positives that can be gained from being sad because sadness is linked to depression and depression is linked to hopelessness. And whenever you're sad, whenever you're depressed and therefore hopeless, you are living in the past because of your fear. You are fearful of change. You are fearful of going through similar situations. Does this make sense? So we have these past fears. And so let's now talk about future fears. Future fears are more, shall we say, I don't know if emotive is the right term, but a bit more aggressive. That might be better. So things like when you're fearful about the future, you might be anxious, or the positive twist to anxiety or apprehension is excitement, right? You might be filled with trepidation. You might be worried. You might be concerned. You might be stressed out. And stress is a type of fear for sure. Or you might be angry or vindictive or bitter or jealous. Like these are more aggressive forms of fear. And the reason why I said earlier, if I had a choice as to whether you should be angry or sad, I'd rather you be angry, is because at least in anger you take action. You're preparing for a future happenstance. Does that make sense? So when we dwell on the future, for example, if we're thinking things like, wait till I see this person again. I'm going to say this to them. Or you might get nervous if you start thinking about, oh my God, when I have that meeting next month, I don't know what's going to happen. It might not go my way. And you might get anxious. Or if you think about, you're going to go on a holiday and it's a long journey and you don't like going on the plane, for instance, you might be worried or fearful, for example. And so on and so forth. Or you might be stressed. Stressed is when we feel overwhelmed. We're taking too much on in our brains. And we don't feel in control. And stress is a mitigation, really, a euphemism of anxiety, really. And that is what future fears create, induce within us. So we've got past fears and we've got future fears. We've also got a different kind of fear here. And this fear refers to the kind of pain that we feel within ourselves, within our bodies. So we've got fear that's inactive. We've got fear that's more in the background, if you will, lurking insidiously, like a ghost, like a shadow that never moves away. And both of these fears are very dangerous. Both of these pains are very pessimistic, deleterious to our health, that's for sure. And personally, I think that inactive fear is very much responsible for lots of illnesses. It's very much responsible for lots of diseases, like mental illnesses, mental diseases, physical illnesses, physical diseases, and so on. And when I talk about dormant fears and inactive fears, I'm really referring to like limiting beliefs that we have. I can't achieve this. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. And really, it's linked to sadness and the more and the deeper form of sadness, which is in fact depression, like I touched upon earlier. So inactive fears and past fears are very, very much married and interlinked in this in many ways. And they kind of pervade our unconscious without our knowing. So inactive fears, I'm really referring to our unconscious here. Because they lurk without our knowing most of the time. And many of our programs, our subconscious programs, like 95% of our beliefs, our perceptions, our emotions are in fact subconscious programs. We are unaware of them. We start repeating certain patterns. And this is very much linked to what I'm talking about here, inactive fears. And these are kind of fears that can last for hours, days, weeks, months, years, because we're unaware of them. And to be honest with you, sometimes our closest friends and familial members can point them out to us, but because they're inactive fears, and for one reason or another we disassociate with these fears or we're unaware of them, it can be hard for people to accept them. And not accept them in the sense that, you condone it, but for people to acknowledge them. Because a lot of the time people steer clear of their inactive, unconscious fears. And now we have active fears. We have present conscious fears. And in this sense, I'm referring to, I call it the winner's fear. And, I know a lot of successful people who suffer from active fear. And, to be honest with you, I know tons of people who suffer from inactive fear, like unconscious fear. And most of them tend to be, let's just say, they tend to not make as much money. They tend to not have as many powerful relationships. They tend to suffer even more. But active fear is more like always wanting more. You know how there are sometimes millionaires out there and they're never happy. And you're like, dude, how are you not happy? You're a millionaire. You've got all the money you could ever want. And yet it's not enough for them. And this is linked to fears as well. It's linked to a lack. It's a feel of feeling insufficient. No matter how much you achieve, you're never quite there. And this is extremely sad in many ways. And, I'm not here to advocate which one's better. I'll let you choose that in terms of inactive or active fear here. That's your prerogative. That's your choice here. But I do want you to understand that it's like you never quite feel like enough's enough. You're never quite full. And this is active fear. It's I called it earlier the winner's fear, the achiever's fear. And either way, it's extremely deleterious, and because these are people who their primary goal are really the results. For instance, becoming a billionaire or becoming or having something that they achieve, like lots of certificates and graduating and lots of like trophies of all sorts, trophy husband, trophy wife, trophies in terms of sports and so on and so forth. And they never enjoy the process. They never enjoy the journey of becoming better human beings or even more skillful or adept and so on and so forth. And it's just never enough, and they never feel satisfied. And that's incredibly sad as well. It's more of like an immediate form of dissatisfaction. But really the only difference is the active people who suffer from active fear are more likely to, in today's modern society, achieve more, succeed more. But all fear is a form of fear and is a form of association with the ego, with an association with the mind, an identification with the mind. And this will lead to incessant stress and incessant affliction, mentally, emotionally, sometimes physically, and in many forms spiritually, because a lot of people are willing to give up their soul, become unethical, lose their morals, become decadent and corrupt because they always want more. They might steal, they might backstab and betray. Think of Macbeth, for example, who was the ultimate loyal person, the ultimate loyal soldier, general, representative of an amazing warrior to the king, King Duncan, and then he ends up betraying his own king out of greed because of his wife, Lady Macbeth, and eventually his corrupt nature ends up eating him inside out, and he ends up biting more than he can chew, and he ends up getting beheaded, and rightfully losing his crown because of his atrocious, sinful crimes. A beautiful play by Shakespeare. And he epitomizes really the person suffering from active fear, someone who's willing to go above and beyond, to sacrifice and to cause all kinds of pain and suffering in order to get ahead, in order to be significant. So these are the different types of fear. And I've touched upon the fact that if we feel like we have problems, then really our egos are taken over. Because whenever you are living in the present, you simply cannot be fearful. Now I'm moving on to how to tackle fears here. So I'm talking about what do I mean by being in the present moment? So let me firstly explain and then make you understand that this is not how I expect you to be living, because my first definition will seem like quite a limited experience, but it's not. So listen carefully. What do I mean by being in the now, the present moment? Really, it's about being detached. In my book, The Art of Power, Happiness and Success, I call it becoming the passenger. And this enables you to experience flow, and I'll talk about that later on. But being in the present moment is very much about not thinking, really. It's more about being, feeling. It's more about taking some deep breaths, appreciating, acknowledging, identifying what there is around you, like the physical things, furniture and so on and so forth. It's more about literally just being able to touch whatever's next to you, like within reason here, take it easy. But being able to, touch a table or touch your phone and just really just appreciate the moment. Truly appreciate the fact that you are alive. Associate with your breathing. Pay attention to your heart beating. Focus on the miraculous things that are happening around you right now. Many things, that greater intelligence that's taking care of you, that's pumping blood around your entire body, that's keeping you alive. Pay attention to the fact that your cells, each cell goes through over 100,000 different chemical reactions every single second. That you create 10 million cells every single second. You lose 10 million as well. The fact that your brain is the most potent, powerful, and incredible organ and tool in the entire universe. Your brain has 100 billion neurons. This is spectacular. The amount of bacteria within your gut is unfathomable. It's absolutely sensational. The amount of processes that's happening in your body. Your ability to digest, absorb nutrients. Now, are you doing that now? No. There's something greater that's doing it all for you. And these are the sort of things that you begin to appreciate and become grateful for when you experience the present moment. And you just truly experience no stereotyping, no judgment, no criticizing, no thinking about the past, no thinking about the present. You cannot be fearful. No problems exist in the now. And I'm not just talking about this kind of very peaceful experience where there is nothing. By being in the now, I mean doing the things that are important to you. For example, you can still work towards your goals and still be in the now. You can still be writing a book and still be in the now. You can still be working on a project for your job or for your career or for your business and still be in the now. You can still be being creative and reading or creating a symphony or writing lyrics or reading or listening to music and still be in the now. So being in the now is not just about this kind of like meditative experience. Anytime you are truly focused, doing what you want to do, truly in the experience, is a beautiful moment, the present moment. And unfortunately, I can confidently say to you that the reason why people suffer from things like cancer, all forms of cancer, diabetes, age-related illnesses like Alzheimer's, dementia, and so on and so forth. The reason why people suffer from all these different afflictions is linked to stress. And if it's linked to stress, then it's linked to the ego. And if it's linked to the ego, it's because you're not in the present moment as much. So I personally know, science is showing this, that by reducing stress, you can delay or prevent all kinds of illnesses. Think about what it does to your digestive system. Think about what it does to your immunity. Think about what it does to your brain function. Think about how it improves the quality of your sleep when you're in the present moment. When you are able to fully relax and appreciate the now and give your attention. For example, I'm in the now. I'm talking to you. I'm focused on what I'm saying. I'm in flow here. I'm not talking to you now thinking about, what am I going to eat for dinner later? I'm not talking to you now thinking about, I've got that really important meeting next week. Do you know what I mean? I'm in the experience. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people suffer in their relationships is because they might be directly in front of people, but they're not listening. They're not fully engaged in the conversation because their mind keeps going here, there, and everywhere. And the average person loses focus about 6 to 10 times every single minute. That's astounding. That's astonishing. And it can be changed through directing our internal focus, our internal dialogue, our internal thoughts. And we can do that through practice. And another way you can do that is and I make a note of this. I didn't really refer to meditation. I'll come back to that as well. The thing is, guys, the more you practice being in the present moment, and it's not a difficult thing to do. Initially, it might feel so. And, a lot of people have told to me, listen, Alex, I gave it a go, but, within 20 seconds, less than a minute, and my mind starts thinking about the past or future. I say, listen, I understand. There's no need to put excessive pressure on yourself. It's a process. It's a journey. It's like exercising. It's like going in the sauna. Some people can only go in the sauna for a few minutes. And then over time, through frequency, through developing your confidence, you are able to stay in there longer and longer. The same exists for being in the present moment. At the start, for some days, sometimes for some people it might take weeks. Like your ego will want to take over. It's your unconscious programming that's trying to go back. And it's like, oh, hey, you're not thinking about the past. Remember that experience that pissed you off or made you suffer and cry a week or month or 10 years ago? Yeah, you're not thinking about that today. What's going on? Something's weird. And your own brain, your own subconscious programs will look to trip you up and make you experience and give up and take you out of the present moment. And we have to defeat ourselves, guys. And it takes practice, it takes willpower, it takes a lot of conscious effort. But trust me, it's worth it. And it can work in the future. Like you might be in the present moment and just take a moment to, go for a walk in the park and just live in the now and pay attention to the sunshine and look at the trees and pay attention to how the grass is flowing and how, the river is so still and looking at the animals and just enjoying moments like this. And then sometimes the active fear might kick on and say, listen, dude, you're wasting your time. You've got shit to do, damn it. You've got things to do. You've got a project to work on. You've got this. And the brain will freak out. And that, again, is your ego, your fearful response taking over. Your subconscious program is taking over. And it's not easy. And I'm here to tell you that it's a process and it's worth embarking on. And I can help you through that journey. Come join me at my mastermind. Come join me at my university. You can access that at my website, www.alexgem.com. You can get my free ebook, 10 Steps to Excellence. You'll love that. Beautiful read. Go sign up. Get yourself that book. You can read it within a couple of hours. It's a beautiful read. Very short, very powerful, backed by science, backed by me studying some of the very best minds throughout history and through my personal experiences as well. So yes, the present moment, living in the now. I'll also refer to what I previously touched upon, which is flow. When we experience flow, we're in the present moment. We are fully immersed. There is no time to think. There is no thinking when you're in flow. Flow is all about experiencing the right kind of challenge to match our abilities, to match our skills. So, for example, you cannot experience flow if you're going to play tennis against Federer. I don't know about you, but I can't. I'm an athlete, but, I'll get absolutely smashed by a Federer. Rightly so. I'm out of my depth. And I would be experiencing a lot of anxiety / excitement if I were to play Roger Federer. But I would not be experiencing flow because it's too much of a challenge. And vice versa, because, I'm an athlete and I have some kind of experience in tennis. If I were to play against someone who's not used to exercising, doesn't really know tennis that well, again, I would not experience flow because I'd be bored out of my mind. It would be too easy to win. So to experience flow, you need the right level, the appropriate level of challenge to match your skill set. And as you do an activity more and more, you can gradually increase the challenge to match your growing aptitudes. And the flow can be experienced in a multitude of different ways. You can experience it at the gym. You can experience it in any form of competition. You can experience flow when reading certain books. You can experience flow when doing a presentation. You can experience flow when going for a run. You can experience flow when in a meeting. Like I'm experiencing flow now because I'm free flowing. I'm talking. I'm not planning exactly what to say when. I'm not reading a script. You know what I mean? I'm just flowing with what feels right. And that's what flow is. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, brilliantly said during his peak, he said, you know, he would be lifting weights fully in the zone. And, you know, there could be a bomb going off next door and he wouldn't be distracted. He would keep training. And someone could go and take his car, he was saying. And he would just continue doing his workout because of the insurance and this and that, he was saying. It was really, really interesting to hear him speak about experiencing flow because he loves it so much, because he's so enthralled in it. You know, other brilliant people have explained experiencing flow as though, you know, hours would pass and it would feel like minutes. Others say they feel detached. They feel as though they're watching themselves when doing things. And I've heard like martial artists describe that. Like they literally saw themselves doing movements like it was a computer game. And this is flow. This is mastery, guys. This is mastery. Many people, when they're experiencing flow, they feel like they cannot clearly explain the situation, because that's what masters do. And you experience flow by doing, like, say, 10,000 hours worth of that skill. That's what enables mastery. And that's my part about flow. So what I say to you is experience flow as often as you can. Find out what you're interested in, what you enjoy. Make sure you make time to do it as part of your hobby, because that's a way of becoming happier, developing more inner peace, being more in the present moment. And that's how you condition yourself to be in the present moment more often. And now let's move on to breathing. Yes, breathing. Big conscious breaths are fantastic. It's brilliant, especially for stopping that fearful response from taking over. Because what happens is, say if your reptilian and your limbic system have been triggered, and you're breathing profoundly, and you're really sweating, you're trembling, you're blushing, whatever it might be. Like your legs are shaking, whatever. The best, like, you do not process information very well when you're in that state. People make a lot more mistakes. They don't react the way that they ideally would have wanted to react in. Like they freeze up, they tense up, these sorts of things. But what you can do is to really work on your breathing, because when you breathe deeply, it calms your circuits down. And it enables blood to flow to your prefrontal cortex, which is essentially the CEO in your brain. You want your cortex to run the show as often as possible, because that's your logical, rational thinking. That's where your creativity lies. That's where your analytical skills lie. That's where your ability to evaluate and formulate and choose the best, the right answers, the best. This is where your brain sequences, when it plans. And you want this part of your brain to run the show. And you can do that through deep breathing. So it might consist of breathing deeply through your stomach, not just having shallow breaths through your chest. You know, deep breaths. Hold your breath once you've taken in a lot of oxygen. And once you've held your breath for, let's say, 6 to 8 seconds, then breathe out very slowly. And your exhale should be between 8 to 12 seconds as well. And that counts as one breath. Do that several times, as often as you can throughout the day. And you will learn to calm your circuits down. You will learn to be in the present moment, to be calm. To detach from the ego, to reduce the amount of thoughts you have per minute. And when you do that, you are able to go from the beta brainwave state, which is where you have 60 thoughts or more per minute, to being far more calm, to enabling your subconscious to open up. And, you know, the fewer thoughts you have, the better quality thoughts we tend to have as well. So the calmer you are, you have better quality thoughts, you make better decisions, you therefore produce better quality emotions, positive, enhancing, empowering emotions and chemicals, rather than painful ones. So yes, breathing and meditation are great forms of meditation. There are different forms of meditation. Really, it's about focusing on your breathing whenever your ego comes into play, which is it's bound to do. The more inexperienced you are, when you sit down to meditate, two things could happen, and it relates to what I was saying about your different types of fears. Like if you are sitting down meditating and you start to think about the past, you think about how you got bullied, or how you got fired, or how your colleague annoys you, or you're thinking about when you got divorced, or when you had an accident, a car accident, or when you had a bad illness, or, when you got bad news from a doctor, or I don't know. If you find your mind wandering onto all these different things, that's your ego taking over again. That's your subconscious programs taking over again. And it's down to you to bring your focus back to your breathing. This is conditioning. This is how you can step out of your egoic mind, step out of your fearful response, and take ownership and take control of your thinking. Take control of your state and be in the now. And, for me, if I'm meditating and things happen in my mind, I don't live in the past much. I've really, really worked on living in the future and experiencing the present future in the present moment as often as possible. But if I'm to be interrupted at certain stages, then I tend to be more interrupted by future fear. For example, I'll start thinking about what I need to do and why I should get up from my meditative state, get up and do some work, or be more productive, or do this and that. That's more of a challenge that I used to have quite frequently. Every now and then that will still happen to me now, but I'm far more relaxed and aware. But so what I'm essentially saying to you is, when you start to meditate, when you sit down to do your deep breathing practices, and you sit down to take control and be in the present moment, be aware of your ego pervasively influencing you and taking over and holding you captive. Because it's down to you to focus on your breathing and to not give in to this. And again, with experience, you'll get better and better at doing this. You'll be able to identify the emotions, your patterns that you do, your internal patterns, your thinking, your emotions, your behaviors. You'll learn a lot about these experiences. So meditation is beautiful for identifying our problems, for focusing on the present moment, for correcting and rewiring our thinking through neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. I speak about that a lot, so just become more accustomed to my material. I have done podcasts on that as well. So how else can we be less fearful? Being grateful. Every day, take time to think about the things that you appreciate in your life. Your ability to learn, your love for constant improvement, whether it be your knowledge, whether it be you love your career, whether it be you love your physical shape, whether it is you appreciate the health you're in, you appreciate the fact that you are able to go out and and do whatever you want to do for much of the day or week or month. You appreciate the fact that you sleep well. You appreciate the fact that you're married or you have children. You appreciate the fact that you have all kinds of physical goods that keep you safe and secure and happy. So start to become grateful for many things. And I think it's good practice to especially be grateful for the intangibles, the things that you can't see. Me personally, I'm always grateful for my ability to learn, my love of learning. I'm always grateful for my willpower. I'm also grateful for my energy levels. I'm always grateful for the fact that, I like to read every day and learn every day. I'm grateful for the fact that, I'm very positive and optimistic about my life. I love the fact that, I'm always looking to spread goodwill and positivity to people, whether they're nice people or not. I love that about myself. I love the fact that I'm very focused in my life. I'm very disciplined. I make time for things that are important in my life, not things that are just urgent matters that are unimportant. These are things that I appreciate, and these are some examples I'm sharing with you so that you can start to think about things that you appreciate about yourself, not just external things such as your looks or your money or your car, because when you associate with pleasurable things, normally you associate with external things, and when you associate with external things, there will be inevitable pain from doing so. Because you'll never, like I was saying about active fear earlier, you'll never be full. It will never be enough. Doesn't matter how many cars you get, doesn't matter how many houses you own. For many people, it's never enough, and that's an addiction. That's a disease in itself, because you can never fully accept and love yourself and be whole if you're always obsessed with not just achieving things, but if you cannot be happy unless it's achieved. That's a very dangerous, precarious situation. So, yes, the importance of being grateful, writing these down. I like to utilize a lot of NLP. I'm going to refer to VAC here. So a lot of people learn and experience things in lots of different ways, through visuals, through auditory, through kinesthetics, like actually doing things, olfactory and gustatory, and all these sorts of like smelling and tasting, but less so than VAC, visuals, auditory, kinesthetics. And so it's very important to kind of manipulate yourself, but also influence others as well. This is what NLP is about, neuro-linguistic programming, being able to get yourself into a certain state because of the language that you use with yourself, because of the way in which you speak to yourself, your tonality, your tempo, because the visuals that you hold in your mind, and whether they're positive and they're bright and they're in your face and they take up your whole peripheral vision when you imagine these things, and whether they are very vivid and clear and acute, and if there's some sounds or video or clip as such attached to it, to really enhance the brightness and just how colourful the experience is in your mind, and to disassociate by doing the exact opposite, to make it far away in your mind's eye, to see it within a box or within a frame, or within like as though you're seeing it like a cinema, like a cinematic experience. This will make you detach from the experience, and through the things that you actually do, like whether you make notes or whether you like to physically do things as a means of learning, like really understand how you operate so that you can start to influence yourself to be getting to peak state, to overcome hurdles in your past, to overcome fear. Because really, fear is not just about the physical things. Like some people have phobias, like fear of snake or fear of spiders, for example, fear of heights or fear of public speaking, or fear of authority figures or what have you. And the thing is, when people have these fears, really it's not the noun, it's not the thing that's the fear. It's your association, it's your perception. It's your thoughts and emotions toward this thing. So it's what you focus on. Your own focus is the fear. It's not the actual thing or person or place. It's not the noun. It's the thing that it's the process. It's the internal processes that create the fear within you. So all we need to do is really reverse engineer that process and start to change how we visualize these things. And for example, like if you're afraid of your boss, and every time you see or hear them or read an email from them, like it evokes a fearful response, a stressful response, anger or anxiety or stress, if it evokes these kind of emotions from you, and then you can kind of play around with your internal patterns to kind of overcome these hurdles, these obstacles, these problems. For example, you can imagine your boss. I saw this this is evident in Waterboy with Adam Sandler when the coach that he hated, he started to see the coach as a baby, for example, and that's NLP really. So you can imagine them as a clown, you can imagine them as singing like a baby nursery rhyme and these sort of things as ways of manipulating your experience, or reverse the experience. Like if there's an experience of your boss talking to you, reverse it in your mind, reverse it more quickly, change the program, take away the brightness, the color, reverse it, make them as though they're wearing a clown's outfit. Really play around with your associations so that you start to break down your existing fearful patterns, painful patterns, so that you can start to take hold of your associations, so you can start changing the anchors that you have set in place, so you can start to rewire your brain essentially, and start to overcome these problems so that the fear has less and less of a foothold on you. And so these are some of the main ways in which you can overcome fear. So I hope you appreciated the quality that I shared with you in this podcast. If you want to know more, head on over to my website, www.alexgem.com. Get my book, The Art of Power, Happiness and Success. You can get that at Amazon. You can get it at my store, www.alexgemstore.com. Come join my course. My Elites course is absolutely tremendous. It's revolutionary, guys. I mean, I know this sounds biased, but I have not seen anything out there that matches the type of quality and the value that I provide in this course. All you need to do is go to my website, click where it says Join IA Today. When you click that, scroll to the bottom, you'll see the testimonials, and you'll also see the course outline. You'll see the different sections within this course. You'll see the different segments. Some of these segments are set to preview. Just click where it says preview, and you'll get the written word. You'll get the audio segment. You'll get the worksheet, which is absolutely tremendous, and you'll get a video as well. All for these small segments, and there are dozens of segments that break down step by step. I'm going to take you on a journey, and I want you to check out these previews because you're kind of getting them for free, really. I want you to see the value that I provide so you understand the quality here and the meticulousness involved in these segments, in these strategies. It's taken me 15 years and more to kind of learn from geniuses, to learn from the best in the world throughout history. It's taken me 15 years of trial and error, of mistakes that I've made. And you kind of, in many ways, you get 15, not just 15 years of my time, of my experiences, of my learning, but you also get 15, you get thousands of pounds of things that I've spent on. I've become certified practitioners in all different areas within my life, and you get I've invested thousands of pounds learning from the very best in the world, learning from courses, going to masterminds, going to workshops, going to all these amazing events, buying hundreds of books on self-development, on NLP. And, you're getting it for a tremendous price, I must say. I also include 3 amazing bonuses in this course: hours of exclusive video footage, podcast material, and 100 audio segments teaching you things, how to reduce stress, how to take control in your life, how to work on your neurotransmitters so you become more balanced, you make better decisions in your life, how to change your subconscious programs, how to be happier, how to develop peace within you, how to improve your sleep, how to develop your self-esteem, how to become more disciplined, how to stay focused on your goals, how to overcome your limiting beliefs, how to overcome your problems. Absolutely outstanding stuff. And really, it's worth between $1,200 to $2,000. I'm not selling it for anywhere near that. Go check out the price. You're going to be blown away. I really want you to invest in me, and therefore invest in yourself. You deserve this investment. People spend this kind of money going out to a restaurant. You know what I mean? It's absolutely ridiculous. This is life transformational stuff, and you deserve this. When you go through the course, start again. It takes between 66 days to 365 days for a pattern to be ingrained within your unconscious. So you're going to need to revisit this information a lot. When you learn new information, such as the copious information you're going to learn at this course, it doubles the connections you make in your brain. But if you don't revisit this information, all those connections that you made in your brain can prune apart within just 48 hours. You can actually forget up to 80% of this content. by not revisiting it again and again. So yes, learn new material, but also revisit this material to transfer it from your short-term to long-term memory. Make sure you sleep well to help consolidate that learning as well. Really, really imperative stuff, guys. Take control of your life. Get that course. Come join me at my Power Mastermind. Talk about transformational stuff. Talk about diving deep. Talk about creating a community of like-minded people in your life. People who are committed. People who are dedicated to improving the quality of their lives, becoming more happy, more developing their self-esteem, acquiring greater abundance in many different areas in their life, their wealth, their health, the quality of their relationships, changing their thought processes, changing their subconscious programs. Come join me at the Power Mastermind. I'd love it if you could join me in person. I only take 20 people at these events because I like delving in deep and really working closely with these people. It's a beautiful experience. Come and join me live. If you can't join me live for one reason or another, if the dates don't suit you and so on and so forth, then you can. I've actually turned the Power Mastermind into a virtual version. I've turned it into a course as well. And when you get this course, you can actually see me working with a live audience, so you can feel like you're part of the group. When you can see hear the stories, you can hear the sharing, you can hear the content, the learning that I shared at that live event, and you get that as well. Not only that, you can actually see me complete the activities and worksheets that's cost me thousands of pounds to learn and thousands of hours to put together over the years. And you can get it so easily. You get the worksheets included in the course as well, the same ones you'd get if you joined us live. You see me completing each activity, each worksheet as well. You can literally see me writing what I'm writing, how to complete the worksheets, so you can get the most out of these outstanding resources. Go hook yourself up. Join us at the Power Mastermind. And, you're going to be blown away again by the price, the bonuses that I've put involved in there. It's absolutely tremendous stuff. Go explore, grow, challenge yourself. Let's grow together. Step outside of your comfort zone. Take ownership. You are responsible. Become an even better, stronger leader, influencer. Give more to people. Express yourself. Become self-actualized. I can't wait to be part of your journey. Have a tremendous day, guys. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and I'll see you soon.